From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back to Potomac Watch. I'm Kim Strassel here with my colleagues, Monet and Bill. Let's change topics. The question of pervasive anti-Semitism on colleges is growing in urgency. Let's listen to Shabbos Kestenbaum, a graduate student at Harvard, testifying last week in front of the House Judiciary Committee about anti-Semitism on campuses being a national emergency.
Members of this committee, I appear before you with an urgent warning. The treatment of Jewish Americans on college campuses across this country, and in particular at Harvard University, is nothing short of a national emergency. It is blatantly anti-Semitic, it is frighteningly discriminatory, and it is deeply un-American. I say these words out of 2 years of personal experience with a pervasive bigotry towards Jews and a stunning lack of moral clarity.
So we have this new report out by a Harvard alumni group. Let me give a little bit of background on it. Go back to last fall on October 8th, as Hamas was still engaged in a massacre in Israel of more than 1,200 people. More than 30 Harvard student groups signed a statement holding, quote, the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all unfolding violence, end quote. This was then followed by a number of Harvard students and groups in the ensuing weeks rallying in support of Hamas and condemning Israel as racist and genocidal. This, at the time, provoked some very concerned alumni to form the Harvard Jewish Alumni Alliance with a mission of researching Harvard's educational programs and interviewing students to better understand just how bad anti-Semitism was on campus. That group is now about 3,000 people strong, and it last week published its first report, which is about 50 pages long, entitled The Soil Beneath the Encampments, How Israel and Jews Became the Focus of Hate at Harvard. Hate is a strong word, but when you read this report, it certainly seems accurate. I will just read one element of it. It notes that, quote, Harvard signals that Jews are only acceptable so long as they don't fully embrace Judaism, end quote. The only way to cope is, quote, not to dress too Jewish, request the university accommodate Jewish holidays, speak Hebrew, or, God forbid, actually support Israel's right to exist, end quote. That is just one of the findings of this report. Bill, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about what else they found?
I think the nation was stunned by the outburst of anti-Semitic sentiment on the campus during the protests. But one of the things I was struck by is that after the October 7th atrocities by Hamas in Israel, on October 8th, 30 student groups signed a statement and said that they blamed Israel for everything. So I think that the real problem isn't even the students. They've incorporated these radical ideas in their faculty, and they support it. And a lot of it traces back to the idea of a class struggle between the oppressed and oppressor's class, and Israel is now lumped in with the U.S. as oppressor. And if you look at it through that film, it's just very distorting. But I think it's troubling because, you know, if you think of 60 years ago, people regarded even the undistinguished local university as a model for how to live together by reason in a diverse and free society. Now, people look at the campus and they see Somalia. They see endless conflict, these crazy ideas. It is the most illiberal institution in America is the American campus. And I think Harvard's only one. What they found in that report, they could probably find at most of the leading universities, certainly in America.
So, Monet, I think Bill makes a really good point about how we're seeing this not just among the students, but among the professors. There were a couple of anecdotes. One person said, I have a friend who wears a kippah who was physically cornered by a group of students demanding that he denounce the so-called genocide. Another person reports that it's now scary to walk around campus. But Bill's point here, too, about the professors, because maybe these encampments will end. Maybe some of the administrators will begin requiring that the students behave themselves. But it strikes me that one of the problems is that it's hard to break free from any of that or teach kids a new way when you actually have professors who are teaching this in their classrooms, who are having curriculum brought forward that reinforces some of these horrible stereotypes and anti-Semitism. And that, to me, strikes me as big an issue as anything we're seeing in terms of these tents outside right now. And yet there's a lot less talk about that and what you do about it, especially in light of the fact that a lot of these professors have tenure and you can't just get rid of them.
Absolutely. I think that when you saw the huge surge in campus protests and them tipping into harassment and violence in some cases, one of the reasons why the universities were slow to respond to them and to have the police come in and clear them is because they were threatened by their faculty. A lot of the progressive members of the faculty who are avowedly anti-Israel, who are defenders of Hamas, supported the students in their actions in some of these illegal protests and suggested that they would put pressure on the administration if there was anything done to arrest the students or to bring them in line with the code of ethics. And so the faculty is a huge source of the problem in this case. It's interesting to mention the role that the tenure protections play in this, because you'd think a lot of administrators are fed up with these faculty members who have gone way beyond mere support for the Palestinian cause into harassment and into expressing themselves in ways that create these horrible conditions for Jewish students on campus. But as you mentioned, it's very hard to remove them. And it just shows how tenure can be a double-edged sword. Like a lot of protections in a liberal society, it's created for the noble purpose of allowing academic freedom and allowing these professors the ability to conduct themselves in the way that they see fit. But that depends on good faith, and that depends on a faculty which is, willing by its own self-discipline to conduct itself in a good and reasonable way. But that can be abused, and we're seeing that being abused throughout the country. And so these universities are going to have to make better hiring decisions about who they bring in the first place. They're going to have to find ways to penalize people who step outside of the bounds of good conduct in whatever ways that they're able to, and hopefully over time start to clear themselves of this problem of these sort of far out progressive professors who are completely abusing the freedom that they're given by the institutions.
Yeah, and they're going to have to get some backbones too. Thank you, Monet. Thank you, Bill. We thank our listeners for being here with us. We are here every weekday. We will be back tomorrow. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. And if you like the show, please hit the subscribe button.